That said, well, why don't we hop into it? Let's do our party examination. Now, for a lot of the streams, I do some background work. I do some setup, and I wanted to do a little bit more setup than normal for tonight, just because I didn't know if it was going to end up having to be a short stream or not. And Sci-Fi Neo, if you are new to the channel, this is a very participatory channel. I'm not here to just lecture. I'm not here as some austere source of D&D lore and knowledge. It is very interactive. So you and others who are out there can ask questions, can offer comments, or even say, well, you know, I like that, but we do things a little bit differently in my circle, and offer that idea. I'm not here to tell you that this is the golden standard way of running D&D or doing things like those, like these activities. But what I do hope is that you find some inspiration, you find some creativity, and maybe if there's only one thing you could take away and bring home, then hey, I think everyone is one in that case. Okay, I understand, Dark Wolf. I gotcha. Alright, now, as you all may know or remember, we have created 5 characters over the course of the week, following our random roll guide. So all of these characters, were completely randomly generated. And after we filled in the parts of the character sheet that needed random numbers, we then breathed some life into them. We gave them personality and purpose and reason and direction. So that while these are, you know, these are characters on a character sheet, hopefully you consider them, well, I could play this character. I'd feel really inspired to. Or if I was reading a book or watching a movie or, you know, going through a comic book or a manga, yeah, I could totally relate to this character. Gotcha, you currently run 5e and Roll20, but you're looking for a live game to run. This will be your opportunity, and we'll be happy to have you, Sci-Fi Neo. So going through, we have Jaren, Tyrael, Niasis, Regalia, and Hamish. What I have done is I have extracted information from the character sheets in order to make a kind of a side-by-side comparison of the different characters. Now, you'll note that, look, here's Hamish, he's a 16th level paladin, and here is Regalia, who's a level 12 monk. How can you compare the two? And that's a very valid question. I think under quote-unquote normal circumstances, you would be comparing characters that are all the same level. Though for purposes of what we're doing in instruction or technique on the channel, ability scores are rather flat in 5th edition. If we're talking 3rd and 4th, yeah, by 16th level, you might have like a 32 and something. You know, because it scales, you get a lot of bumps, and it just keeps going and going and going. In 5th edition, you cap naturally at 20. And so, you can have a character with a starting main score at level 1 of 17, and that's using the standard array. And arguably point by, let alone if you roll. So, it's not... For the ability scores, it's not that unfair to compare characters of different levels. And besides, look at it this way. Even if we have a higher level character compared to a lower level one, we can still see the direction that character is going. And so if someone is going to be a main stat of strength, they're going to carry strength throughout the whole campaign as a high score. So having a level 20 character with a 20 strength compared to, another, like a 4th level character who, who uses something else mainline. Well, look, we know that strength is going to be the high score anyway. And for the purposes of what we're doing tonight, when we make our SWAT report on the party, the particular scores aren't going to matter. We're just looking at the trends that we see inside the party itself. So here's our 5 characters: Jaren, Tyrael, Neais, Regalia, and Hamish. I've taken each of their ability scores and listed them out, as well as their proficient saves. I have included their passive perception and their passive investigation. As a DM, that is a good note to have. Neo, thank you. Lend me your strength and your power, Neo. Actually, now we have a sci-fi Neo and a Neo Realms. Ooh. So our passive perception and passive investigation, those are scores that as a DM can be important because that can help prevent a lot of unnecessary rolls. And then we get over to hit points and armor class. Hit points obviously is going to favor characters of higher level. AC is a lot flatter, much like ability scores. You may very well start out as a paladin in your chainmail and have a shield. And you may very well, throughout most of your campaign, still be wearing that armor. AC is kind of, I don't want to say it's capped, but there's not really a lot of, again, you don't have that 3rd edition, 4th edition, where suddenly you're having to hit ACs of, mid-30s in order to try and, damage a minion or something along those lines. Below this, actually, no one has Jack of all trades nor expertise, so I'm going to get rid of this note here. So below this, you can see that the character who has a proficiency in a skill is listed next to it. And we've made a horizontal bar graph. There are 3 skills that, as we've created each of these characters independently, were not covered. Now, in your party forming session as a PC, you may all sit down and say, well, look, no one has Arcana. I can take it. Yeah, I guess I'll take it because you have Investigation. And so at least Investigation's covered, so I'll take Arcana. Is that bad? I'm not saying it's bad, but you're kind of forming the party with this meta knowledge. Are you staying true to the character that you want and that you've developed? And if you prefer that technique, then stick to your guns and say, well, I guess no one's proficient in Arcana, which is fine. It's perfectly fine. So those are those are highlighted in red, right? No one has proficiency in that skill. Then you have a good handful of skills that are highlighted in yellow. And so we have a broad coverage. I mean, only missing 3 skills isn't that bad. And the reason why those skills that have 1 proficiency are yellow is it's still a caution, right? What happens if Regalia is taken out of the picture? What if she's captured? What if this party splits or something? Suddenly, acrobatics and sleight of hand are not available to the party or to the remainder of the party. If we look at Jaren, what if Jaren wanders off somewhere or something bad happens to Jaren? The party loses nature, animal handling, and survival skills. That's why when we finally get to a little bit of redundancy, it goes green, right? Green, it's safer. It is safer. If Tyrael goes missing, then at least Neais can still fill in the history gap. And Regalia can fill the deception gap in the party. And then we get to sky blue because we're good. I mean, something absolutely tragic. The sky would have to fall for the party to be denied proficiencies in these skills. And in this case, this party, Tyrael, so 3 out of the 5, Tyrael, Neais, and Hamish have athletics. Tyrael, Neaeus, and Regalia have insight, and Jaren, Tyrael, and Hamish have perception. Question: how would you go about letting characters learn new skills? There are two ways you could go about doing that, Dark Wolf, and you can treat them independently, or you could hybridize them. One, of course, is taking the feat skilled. If someone takes that feat, then they can learn 3 new skills and/or tool proficiencies. You can also let characters roleplay, building up, learning that skill. So, if someone doesn't have investigation and they want it, then over the course of some arbitrary amount of time, you as a DM select. If they're actively pursuing it, if they're trying to investigate and they're rolling, even if it's not high, but they're trying, they're asking around, they're role playing through it, ROLE and ROLL. At some point in time, you can grant them proficiency in a new skill. Hey, no problem, Sci-Fi Neo. Thank you for stopping by and for the follow. I hope to see you back here in the channel, and then I'll see you at the shop. And so you have to think about it. Dark Wolf has enough time passed in game. What does it take for someone to be to get proficiency in investigation? Can you pick that up over the course of a week in game? Does it take a month or a year? How hard have they been working? If they're having downtime, are they reading books on detective work, on chemistry, on something else to try and make these connections? And so for learning new skills, you can meet them out that way, and same with languages too. If someone wants to learn a new language, if they put in enough time and investment to start, then you can grant that as a DM. I know someone's trying for cooking utensils and another for survival. If you think that they have done enough to earn proficiency in those tools or skills, then you can simply grant them. That's within your powers as a DM. But just, making 3 campfires and, boiling some jerky or whatever may not qualify for cooking utensils or survival. Read everything that survival entails. Crack open your PHB and look inside. What can you do with survival, and have those aspects of the skill been met, and met enough times through attempts in roleplay and by rolling dice to show that there's a building competency. And if you didn't want to have it just go all at once with an immediate, here's the full proficiency bonus, you could probably even hand out partial bonuses as they work up into it. Because by level 5, the bonus goes up to 3. So maybe if they begin, then you just give them a +1 if they've, done some, a little bit of work. And then over time, you give them a +2. Heck, maybe by that time, your proficiency bonus is a +4, so they still got to keep working at it. But over time and over time and over time, they're building up to be proficient at it until they finally reached that goal. But that is up to you to decide as a DM. I did write down also the languages that the party knows. Now, there are some question marks here because 2 of the characters have fill-in-the-blank languages from backgrounds. How would the party go about determining that? Well, you could look at your character history. You could look at the region. In this case, it would probably be Orcish and or Gnomish as languages to fill in, since that's what the primary location of the campaign will be taking place. Like, those are the 2 major languages. Party tools, same thing. We have 2 characters that know how to use jeweler's tools. Navigators tools, and they know how to pilot water vehicles. And then also in the party, you have woodworker's tools, disguise kit, forgery kit, and land vehicles. This is good to lay out because if your party wants to do some crafting, as a DM, it could give you an idea about what could be going on during downtimes or what you could offer. And then finally, it may not be the strongest measure of a character, but if you write down the abbreviation of what they do, you can get a feel for the capabilities of your party. Pardon me, I'm sorry. Jaren is a warlock, particularly a tome warlock. So, high magic and some melee. Tyrael is also a warlock. So, like normal warlocks, I personally classify as medium magic. You are free to argue that and say, no, warlocks are high magic. Okay? If it makes sense to you, I want to give you ideas. I'm not going to tell you how to run your game in particular. But as it's a blade lock, I'd say medium magic and definitely a melee character. As well, another line in the sand, Tyrael knows 6 skills. And to me, a character that knows 6 or more skills, or proficiencies with those skills, I should say, I'm considering to be a skilled character. And so that is another aspect that Tyrael is bringing to the party. Then we come to Niais, who is a monk? Question mark? Actually, I forgot to delete that. There we go. Low magic because of it is a way of shadow monk. So there is a little bit of magical capability, but definitely a melee character with a little bit of magical support. Regalia is also a way of shadow monk, interestingly enough. So again, light magic and melee. Finally, we come to Hamish, who is a paladin, although he's an oathbreaker. He's an oathbreaker. Still, you know, some medium magic, because paladins can channel magic and, you know, magical type abilities. And so I listed them as a medium magic, kind of like a regular warlock. And of course, Hamish is bringing melee capabilities to the table as well by being a paladin. After this setup, then, if we look in the totality of the party, we can then go through and complete what's called a SWOT report. SWOT. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths and weaknesses are internal to the party. Opportunities and threats are external to the party. And here is a good example. What would be, and I want you all to consider out there as you're watching along. Here's kind of some low hanging fruit. Okay, strengths, melee. This is a melee heavy party. That said, weakness could be. I mean, magic is ranged, but if you want to put something like ranged weapons, that's internal. An opportunity. So this is something that's external. We have. Disguise kit, forgery kit. Opportunities, definitely for infiltration. Yeah, Rycon. This is something that is just it's an opportunity for the party to run across, and they have, with all 5 people, they are definitely capable of infiltrating. Right? We have these way of shadow monks. We have some sneaky sneaks. If the opportunity arises, they can take it. Yes, Raycon, we have an Oathbreaker Paladin. That's Hamish, the Forest Gnome. Neutral, evil, Oathbreaker Paladin. Now, a threat. What would be a threat in this case? Well, look. High magic, medium magic, low magic, medium magic. What would be a threat? A wild or anti-magic zone. Also, to an extent, because as we look down here, melee, 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 melee. Ranged enemies. Flying enemies. Or just enemies that are still on the ground, but they're just a distance away from you. So I want you to think about what you see here. What are some other strengths and weaknesses of the party? What are some other opportunities for the party as well as threats? How about this? Figuring stuff out, or at least resisting magical effects that will challenge your intelligence, this party's not so good at. In fact, look, I will even deselect the highlighting. These are the weak, these are the dump stats of the party, right? Look at that. 3 of them have intelligence as a dump stat. You could argue 4, because there's the 2 low stats for Hamish are int and whiz. But for effect here, so we could argue 4 of the 5 characters have a dump stat in intelligence. We are not a smart party. So we are going to work with what's in front of us. Right? Look at our passive investigation: 9, 12, 13, 9, and 10. And for con, while we do have some characters with high constitution modifiers, no one's proficient in that save, and so this could create a vulnerability to acid damage, poison, and necromancy, which all primarily attack constitution. Fnog, I do appreciate that you don't have to be smart to be wise. Exactly, because one is street smarts, that's wisdom. The other is book smarts, and that's intelligence. You can survive all your life without knowing the scientific classification of a cricket, as long as you know that you can capture them and eat them, and they won't make you sick. What are some other opportunities? Travel. Navigator's tools, vehicle proficiencies, and the fact that 2 of these characters are sailors, which we'll get to at the other part of the party examination shortly. Travel is a wonderful opportunity for our party. And obviously you can list circumstances where insight, perception, or athletics would come up. We do have a fairly good strength. Strength and charisma are pretty solid for us, actually, looking at the numbers. Hopefully you can read the numbers at home, and the text isn't too small for you. So we can sit down for like a half hour and nitpick every single circumstance. If something pops out at you, you could shout it out and we can add it to the sheet. But I wanted to go through a couple aspects of this party to get you thinking, well, can you do this at home for your group as a DM or as a PC? Can you get your friends together and compare your character sheets, as long as that doesn't, you know, some DMs or even some other players might not want you to share that information in order to keep things, well, just to keep things separated, right? So you have to play your character and other people have to read your cues. So make sure you find out that if that's appropriate or not first before you do this. And if it is, then you can sit down and just run, you know, what's the full spread here. So the other part of party formation I wanted to bring up isn't quite the hard statistics that we just looked at. If we come down here, what we're going to do is let's try and find the bonds. I mean, not necessarily just the bond as part of a background. Let's try and find the similarities between characters, right? If we're playing 5 independent characters who so happen to come together and adventure is thrust upon us, what could help bring us together despite any differences that we share? There's several ways that you can do this. For example, if you want to, you can bring up every character has an aspect of neutrality to his or her alignment. So no one may necessarily have strong convictions. They may be willing to be at least slightly open-minded in some way. Right? So we can highlight the neutral with kind of this light gray. You can go through then and say, well, here we have some evil characters. So we'll make this a stronger gray. And then we have some good characters. Kind of a medium gray here. Now, does evil have to get along with evil? No, not and just same with good. But what that means is you might have these evil characters who are really, it's more about selfishness or the ends justify the means, kind of an outlook. So you might have them at least agreeing that, no, this is more important because of X. Whereas the good characters who are a little bit more selfless might say, no, we need to go about things via Y because, you know, the end does not justify the means. You know, and then where does the lawfulness come into play? Well, Tyrael is kind of just more organized than someone else, and maybe she's just doing her own thing there. If you want to assign a color to it, you're welcome to do so. You know, look here too. We have I see Tyrael's P1 and Regalia's P2 work together. And we'll get to that in just a second, Dark Wolf. Would our drow get along with our half-elf? Even if the half-elf isn't a half-drow. Although she could be, right? What would stop her from being a half-drow? So you could make a connection along not just alignment, but race, even. You want to look down here and say, well, look, we have 2 warlocks. So here are 2 people that are bound by something greater than them. So what if these 2 actually, what if these 2 can get along? Because while they may have different patrons, they at least understand the service. Similar, if we look at our 2 Way of Shadow monks. Maybe they went to the same school together, or if they didn't, then there might be some kind of, some level of appreciation for how those 2 go about the same task. Obviously, we have two pirates who are presumably from the same ship. That's an intrinsic connection right here as well. So Tyrael might be connected to Hamish because they both serve aboard the Cascade. Here we have a charlatan who forges documents and other things. That could come into play with something else here. Folk hero number 3, by the way, indicates that he stood up to a great monster, and his people appreciated that and made him a folk hero because Jaren stood up to this, whatever this beast is. Yeah, I know. I haven't really found a good system yet, Dark Wolf, to be able to indicate that. So just, it's kind of a go along with the narrative for right now, until I figure out how I want to categorize things along those lines. Thank you for letting me know, though, because it's important for me to know what you hear and see on your end of things, as it could very well be different than what I'm viewing on my screen up here. But let's let's look at now what you brought up. Tyrael's personality trait 1 and Regalia's personality trait 2 work together. I never pass up a friendly wager, and I'm a born gambler who can't resist taking a risk for potential payoff. So sure, let's start here. We have a risk taker. So actually, we have these two risk takers here. Does anyone else take risks? I have a strong sense of fair play and always try to find the most equitable solution to arguments. Maybe not. So this might be a trait that just these two share. But also, don't just confine personality traits to personality traits. We might be able to find some ideals, bonds, or flaws that also fall in line here. So here we go. Hamish's flaw is a personality trait to the other two characters. Once someone questions my courage, I never back down no matter how dangerous it gets. So there's a risk taker as well. You might even be able to argue up here that Jaren's personality trait 2, thinking is for other people, I prefer action. That could very well be risky, right? Jaren wants to just dive in and get things done. So what if we highlight that? Jaren might have taken the risk with the monster. So yeah, we could even go up here and associate the folk hero with that same kind of behavior. Don't just look at apples to apples, personality traits to personality traits. We want to build bonds between aspects of the characters in different ways and levels. So now let's look at this. Here's a sense of loyalty, right? Tyrael's flaw: I follow orders even if I think they're wrong. So Tyrael has arguably a detrimental sense of loyalty. Who else is very loyal? I have a strong sense of fair play and always try and find the most equitable solution to arguments. I work the land, I love the land, I will protect the land. My friends know they can rely on me no matter what. Now, you could question the bond that Tyrael has. The ship is most important. Crewmates and captains come and go. Is that loyalty? Well, it's loyalty to an inanimate object. I mean, we know that the Cascade's not inanimate, but she has a loyalty to a thing. A compulsion towards a thing. So maybe this wouldn't earn that orange highlight. Fairness. I never target people who can't afford to lose a few coins. My friends know they can rely on me no matter what. Respect. Hamish is ideal. Yep. You might even say that Nies is charity. I always try and help those in need, no matter what the personal cost. That could be a form of loyalty. So here, look at this. Every character has a strong bond of loyalty. And in a pinch, they could invoke each other's loyalty as a way to get over whatever personal speed bump is thrown out there for a decision to be made. Let's look at this too. Hamish's bond. In a harbor town, I have a paramour whose eyes nearly stole me from the sea. So here is someone who's very personal. A personal connection. It could be a lover, or in this case, look at this. Look at Regalia's bond. I owe everything to my mentor, a horrible person who's probably rotting in jail somewhere. Jaren's flaw is a bond to someone else. The tyrant who rules my land will stop at nothing to see me killed. I will someday get revenge on the corrupt temple hierarchy who branded me a heretic. It's still a bond to a person, and it's similar to Regalia's, but we still have a personal connection somewhere with the character. That's what we're measuring, a personal connection. So what could be next? How about loyalty to... well, look, we talked about the difference between loyalty to persons and maybe dedication to a thing, or, you know, something that's not living. So let's look at that. The ship is most important. I pocket anything I see that might have some value. That's an attraction to a thing, or even a behavior or a faith. So we look down here, and I quote sacred texts and proverbs in almost every situation. I see omens and events and in every action. The gods try to speak to us. We just need to listen. Here, I don't know if we're dealing with a very religious person. Would this be a personal bond to the gods, or would this be more of a personal ideal to an abstract thing, or to something that's not living? That'd be up to you to decide. If you had this sheet, you may very well color it different. I mean, not just for color differentiation. You may very well have different opinions about the connections in the characters, and that is absolutely fine. As we're using this as a practice and an exercise to show, how do we have a party with two neutral evil characters, two neutral good characters, and a lawful neutral character stuck in the middle? How does that party get along? How does it function? How could they ever hope to build friendships or ideals despite the massive personality differences? You're seeing it happen live in front of you. Here's an ideology. To me, a tavern brawl is a nice way to get to know a new city. Hamish goes and just kind of slums it up, right? Every town that Hamish goes into, he looks for a fight, and he's looking to get stronger and to challenge people, if only to prove himself or assert his dominance over a someone or a situation. Then we have a little bit more, here we have freedom, right? This is it's wonderful. It is something that people hope for. It makes your heart go doki doki. So Jaren and Tyrael both value freedom. Maybe in slightly different ways, but they still value it. Look here, I can't resist a pretty face. Regalia wants the freedom to pursue whomever she wants in some kind of a romantic or lustful way. You may even be able to argue that Nieus here, that this is a form of freedom, right? It's all around us. We just have to open up. Just like there's lovers all around us, potential people that we want to have a meal, sit down, have a coffee, or have some sort of adult interaction or whatever. Here, everywhere he looks, he's seeing opportunities in the communications of the gods. It's a sense of freedom if you just read the signs. Then we kind of have the oddball here, right? I'm suspicious of strangers and expect the worst of them. Could that be the dark blue, kind of the bond to someone or something here? Possibly. Or sometimes, look, not everything matches up. Sometimes you just have a little dangly bit hanging out. Hey, Romonger, good to see you. And so that's perfectly fine. Look, Acolyte, you're like, well, but look, we don't have another Acolyte. The Charlatan isn't even pretending to be a priest of some kind. Again, don't just confine yourself to apples and apples here. If we come over, here is someone who has a faith. Also, here is someone who has a faith. An Oathbreaker still draws on divine powers and energy. It's just not the original bond that he promised. And so he forged a new one by breaking his first oath. So an Acolyte background can find similarities with even an Oathbreaker Paladin. If you even want to look here too, along races, if we want to say half-elves and drow might be able to get together, at least somewhat, then we have a halfling and a forest gnome. Two small races. They may not necessarily get along, gnomes and halflings, or maybe they do, who knows. Though they can still commiserate about the same, problem, hashtag short, small race problems, right? They both are subjected to medium and larger sized people and monsters. This is a way for these two to connect. Even though one is neutral evil and one is neutral good, do you think that a stout halfling and a forest gnome could find some similarities, some common ground upon which they can, even if it's only on occasion, at least touch base and have a moment of connection? And you know what? If you don't want to say, well, heck, we might even be able to connect all three here. What if, and we didn't determine this, but what if Tyrael was a half-elf drow, right? That would give a connection to Jaren. However, what's the other half? The other half would be human, right? It would be Nieus. And so all three by virtue of Tyrael, could be connected, you know, with her as the medium. Now, if not, and you know, even if it's not directly Drow, or he's like, yeah, I'm Drow, but I don't. Just because I'm Drow doesn't mean I'm an elf. I mean, I get what you high elves and forest elves or wood elves do. I'm not a part of that. In that case, can we connect Tyrael to Neaeus as a human? Possibly. Again, that's up to you all to decide as you have made the characters and you're doing this worksheet and you're having these thinking exercises on how can we possibly ever get 5 completely different people together on the same page on something. Zullerpie. Hey, Maddie and chat. I'm late, but I enjoyed a good meal. Oh, that's wonderful. Yes, Pie, be fat and happy. That is the way to be. What'd you end up having, Pie? Actually, you know what might be an interesting connection? Here we have someone who commits forgery as their preferred con, as a charlatan, right? Someone whose job it is to create trust or distrust as they so choose. Look at this. I am suspicious of strangers and expect the worst of them. Opposites can attract, right? What if this bond, this could very well actually bond Neaeus and Regalia. You went off your vegetarian diet to have a beef burger and my usual get... I won't tell anyone. It's fine. It was Dark Wolf's cheat day too, Zullerpie. Your secret's safe with us. I hope that it was savory and it scratched an itch that you had. You know what? We could even do this. Consider this as well. Let's make human one color. Let's make humans kind of this dusty blue. Let's make half dusty blue. Let's make elf kind of an olive green, and we'll make drow green. Some characters might actually split. It doesn't have to be 100% or an all or nothing. So this character could actually be bonded differently, but could still be bonded to Jaren and Neaeus. Cheat days for everyone! Yay! I mentally rolled 2d20 with disadvantage and 1, so beef it was. See, so there you go. The gods themselves willed it, Zullerpie. It was meant to be. So there we go. I hope you all were able to take something away from. It's making you miss. Have you not been playing D&D recently, Romonger? But I hope that this kind of examination gets you thinking about your character, especially in juxtaposition to all of the other characters in your party. Because even if they don't want to share their character sheet with you, there's nothing that's stopping you from taking notes about how everyone at the table acts. Right? And so you can take those notes and you take the initiative to make those connections and to throw them out there and you be the glue binding the party together. Not this weekend. Oh, SDCC's going on. How are the lines, Romonger? Did you have to wait in line like 2 hours just to, I don't know, get a ticket or something, or? In other news, your job is having an office Pokemon challenge. What are the details? How are you doing that, Dark Wolf? You had a secret line weapon. Someone got us press pass. Ooh. Ooh. We have all sorts of secrets in this channel tonight, don't we? Gotcha. Does that mean you had to carry a camera around? Did you have one of those? Did you have like one of those fedoras or whatever, Romonger, and it had the piece of paper in the brim that said "press"? That would have been magnificent if you did. You were dressed as Boba Fett, okay? If you're willing, I know I keep pressing you for pictures, but dude, you have a lot of creative stuff going on. If you are so interested in sharing those pictures on Discord, I know I'd personally love to see them. All right, everyone, we've been going at it for about an hour. I need to get up, walk around, and drink a lot of water, because my voice is still kind of rough from, well, kind of a rough morning. Ugh. I'll be back in a little bit, so hang tight, and when we come back, we are going to we're gonna make a campaign for these 5 characters, and we'll last week we showed something called the midpoint method, and this one I'm kind of calling the Star Trek approach. Hopefully that raises an eyebrow, a la Spock. Oh, no. I mean, number one, that's fine, Romonger. You never have to share anything. I just thought you had one of you in costume. Nope, if I totally get it, you are 100% fine with that. That is fine. That is fine. No need to apologize at all. I was just thinking it was you in costume. Hence why I asked. All right, I'll be back soon. Hang tight. Again, I'm just going to get up, kind of get the blood flowing, drink a lot of water, and we'll come back and we'll make a campaign. You all were Boba Fett. Interesting. Long live the Mandalorians.